On the show today, we'll focus on how the talent of young people working in finance can be harnessed in an increasingly digital world. As always, you can join the conversation with the hashtag Beyond Markets. You can also follow my Twitter handle too, at Esther Ubudaga. Now, a new report by the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants called Generation Next, Managing Talent in Large Accounting Firms, finds that while most are satisfied with their present roles, they remain ambitious. And with an eagerness for fast progression, they view technology as an opportunity and intend to move on at the right time. Helen Brand, CEO of ACCA Global, joins me to shed some light on the report and to explore how the profession can harness the talent of Generation Next. Helen, pleasure to have you on Beyond Markets today.
Thank you.
Quite an interesting report, but I want to get a sense of what the profession is like right now. I know that you're a professional body, the ACCA, and of course the issues around ethics, and of course just ensuring that the profession moves along with today's current realities, especially as technology is just taking on a life of its own. But help us understand the state of the profession right now.
Okay, so ACCA itself has 200,000 members globally and 486,000 students, which shows a very keen interest in becoming a professional accountant globally. In the entire profession, there are around 3 million accountants at professional level, roughly, so it's quite substantial. And we see the accountancy profession as being at the heart of the business world and helping to drive sustainable economic growth. And part of that piece around sustainability is the ethical dimension that you talked about. So every professional accountant is signed up to a code of ethics, and I've heard the CFO referred to as the ethical guardian of the business, making sure that things are not only done, but done in the right way. So we see both, of course, the technical skills that are incredibly important, knowing about financial control, cash flow, helping the business grow through your financial strategy, but also that ethical dimension, making sure that things are done in the right way, that there is compliance, that ethical behaviours happen throughout the business. That's very often the role of the financial professional or the accountant. And of course you have the firms who advise businesses as well, so the auditors, the advisors, and they also need to have independence, objectivity and behave in an ethical manner. So it's part of the fabric of the business world, the accountancy profession. And of course the business world is changing massively, as you said. The digital dimension that is affecting all aspects of our lives. The accountancy profession is not immune from that. Automation in particular is set to take over a number of the routine tasks that might have previously been performed by accountants at lower level roles. So the profession is going through a time of rethinking itself and making sure that the next generation that we're talking about in this report is properly equipped to thrive in a digital world.
Okay, so obviously there's going to be a lot of being proactive, because like we agree, technology is changing things, and if there are going to be some roles that traditional accountants would have to let go of, based on what we're seeing around technology and AI, I'm thinking that could that drastically change what.
Well,
in
the Generation Next report, which was a report that over 19,000 respondents to that report worldwide, what was very interesting that young people didn't see this as a threat to their employment. They saw it as an opportunity, because what they saw the opportunity as being was to rise up the ladder and have higher value added roles. So no more number crunching or the routine efforts that had gone on before, but actually providing creativity to the business, providing vision, actually having digital capability themselves, so matching the financial capability with the digital capability to drive the business forward. I think it's very clear that the younger generation doesn't see digital as a threat, they see it as a way of life. It's very much embedded in the way that they've grown up. And they expect businesses and they expect their work environment to reflect that digital environment that they've grown up in. So I think some of us, like myself, in an older generation, might view it a little differently.
Yes.
But they're not threatened. They see opportunity, and that's great news coming out of this report.
So if you're saying that when it comes to number, they're not, there won't be so much number crunching. I'm thinking, but that is at the heart of being an accountant. You're the one who looks and takes care of the numbers, or is that going to be taken care of now by AI? I think it's more about the analysis
of the numbers now. So it's of course the crunching can be done by the machine, but the understanding and the judgment that needs to be applied and the business decisions that need to be taken, that's going to be held by the professional accountant. And that's a very interesting, exciting role to play within a business. I think also that we have to remember that many young people are using an accountancy qualification as a foundation for a business career. So they're not necessarily staying within accountancy the whole way through. I understand that because
the report highlights that, that they're a lot more ambitious now, and they're not going to stay in the traditional, you spend 10, 20, 30 years in a company, like a career for life in a particular company. But they're eager to move on.
Absolutely. What was really striking about this report, and this is globally, 81%, be it men or women, said that they wanted their next role to be starting their own business, their next move to start their own business. So a huge entrepreneurial spirit. In Nigeria, 95%.
Wow,
so the most entrepreneurial group of young people in the world, in the finance profession, is in Nigeria. And I think that's really good news for the country. We know that the beating heart of most economies is SMEs. Yes, large corporations have a big role to play, but most people are employed in SMEs. And so the fact that young people want to be in control of their own destinies, they want to run their own businesses, and they want to do it with the basis of a foundation and a grounding in a finance career means that it's more likely that those businesses will be successful.
No, but the report also highlights that, apart from being proactive, there has to be, that leadership-based approach to it. So I'm thinking, leadership, that itself is a different kettle of fish entirely, because you need leadership skills, and it takes a lot to be a leader or have that mindset.
Well, 2 years ago, we undertook a report, a huge research report called Professional Accountants: The Future, trying to understand what would be needed, and that leadership piece came through very strongly. So in response to that, ACCA, as one example of how the profession is responding, we've introduced a new professional level qualification called Strategic Professional, and at the heart of that is a case study examination called Strategic Business Leader, precisely where we're asking young people to integrate their learning with practical application and with leadership skills to demonstrate that they are going to be able to go into those businesses and add value very early on in their careers. Of course, it's not a one-off exercise, and continuing professional development is also critical. So we're using those kind of leadership modules to train existing members as well, to upgrade their skills, make sure that they are able to rise to the challenges that are coming in the new business environment.
Speaking about the new business environment, for the ACCA, as a whole, you've come a very long way, and you've been able to maintain that around integrity and ethics. But for you, as the world evolves now, along with technology, what are your priority areas in terms of sustainability, moving with the times, and ensuring that the profession itself, rather from a perception perspective, remains strong, and one that one looks to and says, okay, that is a body of integrity when it comes to ethics, when it comes to the quality of people that go through them, it's A+.
Well, there are many ways we're addressing this. One very important one is that emphasis on ethics. So last year in October, we launched our new ethics and professional skills modules. So to become a member of ACCA now, you need to pass all the examinations, you have to have at least 3 years relevant experience, and you must also complete the ethics and professional skills module, which is delivered digitally, and it's an interactive module where people are faced with business dilemmas and asked to respond to those and say what action they would take. So it's very interesting to learn through this kind of program. There isn't always a right and a wrong answer. You have to exercise judgment. and you have to have many different complex factors sometimes with the challenges that you're facing. So everybody has to go through that module, and we're having a fantastic response from the market, from employers. It's precisely the kind of thing they want to see their people doing. So even non-ACCA members and students are going to go through that module because it's going to help them to develop their skills. On the digital side, we want to make the ACCA qualifications as relevant as possible. That's really what you're talking about, relevant. So the examinations are being increasingly delivered digitally, so computer-based examinations. But it's not the old style. I think some people have an image of multiple choice questions with those kinds of it. But now the technology allows you to use spreadsheets in the examinations. So instead of writing in an exam about it's actually you're actually using a spreadsheet and you're demonstrating your applied skills. So again, it helps the employer to know that you're hitting the ground running. So all of that technology is enabling us to replicate the work environment within the examination space and ensure that we have work-ready professional accountants going into the market.
Now, still on ethics, I know that it's not all, there's a lot being done to improve, in that area, but I know that it's also not perfect. No. So, I mean, obviously there are, because, ethics, it starts from the CEO down to the last person in the organization, and there could be, social and, economic costs to, unethical behavior. Just help us understand, I don't know, maybe some different scenarios where, this could happen, and I don't know what the organization could do, or what you as a body, how you intervene.
Well, first and foremost, you're absolutely right. Ethics relies on tone from the top. So if you have, you can have as many ethical statements as you want, as many rules as you want. If the leadership of an organisation isn't behaving in a way that is consistent with that ethical code, the business isn't going to behave appropriately. So that's first and foremost, people who are chief executives, who are CFOs, they have to take responsibility for behaving in a way that's consistent with that code. But I think one thing that the public doesn't always understand about the accountancy profession is that there is redress when professional accountants do not behave in accordance with the code of ethics. So, for example, ACCA has an independent regulatory and disciplinary function that will investigate any complaint about the conduct of one of its members and one of its students. Actually, as soon as you sign up to be a student of ACCA, you come under that professional conduct code. So we do investigate members, we do discipline them, and we do remove them from membership if they're proven. So that impacts their livelihood. It's a very serious thing. It's not a court of law. It is about being a professional body, and that is the difference between holding a certificate or a degree to belonging to a professional body where you have to, throughout your career, you have to demonstrate your adherence to that professional code. The other aspect of that, of course, is proving your continual professional development. So each year we ask our members to demonstrate that they have achieved a certain level of continuing professional development, which keeps them relevant. So it's no good learning something 10 years ago and thinking that keeps you up to date. Of course it doesn't. So our members, in order to fulfil their public interest remit, have to stay up to date. If they don't, again, ultimately we remove them from membership.
Okay, I asked this question because I remembered some instances here, especially here in Nigeria, and one not too long ago in South Africa where, but let me talk about the one here in Nigeria. We've had instances where companies, especially listed companies, when it comes to earnings season and they have to report, and it turns out that some companies, cook their books, and of course they had that independent auditors and accountants who were part of the process in, putting the numbers together and certifying the numbers, and it turned out that, just something just wasn't adding up. And I remember I used to ask myself, so who holds those people accountable? I mean, what kind of punitive measures? Who is there a body that's responsible to ensure that that doesn't happen and doesn't cast a dark shadow on the rest who are doing the right thing?
Exactly, and the vast majority of members, of course, get very angry when there are those misdemeanors like you've described, because it does impact on their reputation. And first and foremost, people have to trust professional accountants. So there are many ways. One is through the professional body, where there should be disciplinary action taken. The other, of course, is regulation, and the FRC now in Nigeria is ramping up its activity to make sure that they have effective oversight of the profession. And then some of it is criminal activity, and that needs to be reported in that way as well.
Well, Helen, we'll take a short break. Thank you for your time so far. We'll pick up from where we left off. I've been speaking to Helen Brand, CEO of ACCA Global. Helen Brand, CEO of ACCA Global, is my guest today. Helen, thank you for your time so far. Let's talk about social mobility, still part of the findings of your report, and how it's transforming the potential of the talent pool of the profession. Help us understand that.
Well, we were very interested in social mobility. It's a hot topic for many governments around the world. How do disadvantaged communities get access to the professions, which often means access to stable careers, wealth generation, and what it is that people need to see for economic growth. So we produced a report recently, Purpose and the Profession, and to understand how it is that we can ensure an inclusive profession rather than an elitist profession that leaves people behind. So this was over 13,600 members from around the world were involved in the survey. And we were looking at aspects such as, well, did your parents go to university? So that can quite often be an indicator of if new groups of people are coming into the profession whose parents are not already professionals or not degree holders, then it shows that something good is happening, that there's more transferring into the professions. So in Nigeria, we found that 32% of the people that we surveyed, their parents had not been to university, which is, I think, good progress, although the global average was 52%. So there's a bit of a gap there. And although for example, ACCA has always been open, we have many entry routes to our qualification. You can be a school leaver, you can have a diploma, you can come in with a degree. It just means you sit more examinations if you're coming in at a lower level. So it's always been very open that way, and that was one of our founding values, opportunity. We need to provide opportunity to people to come in. That having been said, we did find that the profession needs to be more proactive in ensuring that people understand the value of a career in the accountancy profession, and that we're getting more diverse input. And that's for good business reasons. We know that diversity of thought, diversity of background, diversity of upbringing actually helps the business to be closer to the customer base, to perform more effectively, and you don't get groupthink, that dreaded thing where everybody in the room has already come to the same conclusion because they live the same lives effectively. But so having that diversity of thinking really helps boardroom decisions, management decision making. So we think there are some very clear steps now that need to be taken by the profession. First of all, to increase awareness of the accountancy profession in certain communities where it might not be thought of as an appropriate career for the individual. We also see where women become involved in finance, that they begin to become more economically independent, which we know is good for families, which means that...
I was going to ask you about that. I mean, on the gender side of things for women, are we seeing more women coming into the profession? And does it fit into, because I knew that, I mean, traditional models before where, you know, the woman has, up until today, she still has to juggle her career and, you know, family life and all of that. Do you think that this profession, is it a profession that women will be looking forward to, you know, coming into while also wanting to spend more time, you know, with family?
Yes, well, the work-life balance is important actually for everybody now. I think even, well, I say even men, but men as well are starting to talk about the need for that work-life balance. We find that finance profession, accountancy qualification really assists with that. It's one of those things that you can serve a client from home, you can do it part-time, you can keep yourself up to date through technology and learning digitally. So at ACCA, I'm pleased to say that the majority of our students are women, and 42% now of the membership is female, and that is increasing rapidly. So we have the highest, as a professional body, there are many professional bodies in the world, we have the highest number of percentage of members who are women. We were the first body to admit a woman, and we've always, because of that philosophy of opportunity and diversity that we were founded on, women have always been attracted into ACCA. So we see women in finance, women in the accountancy profession as an incredibly important theme, and we do a lot of work to support women. So for example, schemes around return to work and understanding how to go when you've raised your family, how do you go back and be productive? And there are lots of very simple, the confidence sometimes of women has been undermined there, and how do we support them? So the social mobility work is more about which economic background you come from, but of course, gender parity in the profession is also incredibly important.
So, but when you talk about awareness, what exactly are you doing to create awareness?
Okay, so we're going into schools, and going into schools where that population isn't automatically connected through their parents to the profession. So finding those schools where the students might not normally be expected to go through. Also embedding in school curriculums financial literacy, which then leads to the possibility of a career in accountancy and the understanding of that possibility. ACCA has developed something called ACCA X, which is provided on a free digital learning platform, which is very basic management accounting and financial accounting courses that people can go through. Some schools are using that now as part of their curriculum, to increase the awareness and financial literacy in young children around the age of 14. 13, 14, that's when you start to form those ideas and the ideas of what you can go on to do. One of the most important aspects, though, in the social mobility piece is to collect data. And we see this, around gender parity as well. Okay,
this is collecting data on social diversity. Okay.
That's right. So you understand the starting point and you can measure progress, because sometimes you can keep... There have been many initiatives over the years around social mobility and gender diversity, and yet actually the situation hasn't changed very much. So you need to know what are the drivers that actually make a difference, and you can only do that if you measure and if you understand the data and you understand the actions that need to be taken to drive. I do think the digital environment we talked about earlier really provides an opportunity here. It will be easier to collect the data, it will be easier to act on that. Okay. And it's also easier to be flexible. I think a lot of diversity issues can be addressed if you introduce flexibility. So there has been a very set way of working in business and a set way of learning, actually, which is male orientated. If you all do business on the golf course, or you all do business in the club, women don't often have the time to be on the golf course or in the club or whatever it might be. But if you can work in the evenings digitally, if you can access learning programs that don't mean you have to go and visit a classroom, but you can interact with tutors online, all of that provides tremendous opportunities for people who hadn't previously had access to learning and development to do so.
You're also looking to engage with social policy at the national level from a policy perspective. Tell us about that briefly.
Well, as I said, this is a huge interest of governments because they know that jobs and inclusivity in the job market are incredibly important to prevent social unrest at its very worst. So they're very interested in those policies that they're going to drive inclusivity in the professions. So what we want to provide to governments, first of all, is the data, so they can act on evidence. Okay. We can have evidence-based policy making. Accountants are good at data, so we should be able to provide that information that helps the right decisions to be made. And making sure that through professional bodies such as ACCA, it's not simply about education and training accountants, it's providing that research and insight to government that enables them to act.
Okay, now finally, now we have about 1 minute left. Looking at the profession, how far you've come in the next 10, 15 years, what do you want, what do you see the profession looking like? What kind of shape, and especially how technology would have shaped the sector?
Yeah. Well, I think technology will be ensuring that the professional accountants are genuinely business leaders. They will have the toolkit, they will have the information, they will have the processes that enable them to use their ethical and judgment skills to progress.
All right, Helen, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on
Thank
Beyond
you.
Markets today. Helen Brand, CEO of ACCA Global.